guys. Welcome to Motorvate. This is episode 4, and I've got a big show for everybody today because I do really geeky titles. They're not geeky, they're powerful titles, but they're like, why did you come up with this title for me? So I came up with, for you ladies, She's Got the Mic. And the reason why is because these two women right here were the first to do some really big things as broadcasters in our sport. And what you guys did took a lot of guts. Wendy Venturini, Jamie Little joining me, the first to be lead announcers in the booth, television, radio, both of you. Thanks for joining me today. I want to talk about how you got to that place and how you had the guts to take the reins and pull it off, because there's still, there hasn't been another woman yet to do what both of you have done. So, Wendy, let's just kick off with you, because I met you a long time ago when I was in the truck garage.
Right.
And I saw you sent me a bio earlier today, and it was like 25 years. I'm like, me too. We're both the same, 25 years.
Yes.
Of course, your family's in racing. So
yeah, but that's 25 years working. Thanks for having me. First of all, it's good to be here with you, Angie and Jamie. I'm so glad you're here in the studio with us. That's a great opportunity for all three of us to be together today. So 2004 was my first official year working where I earned a paycheck, and that started off in the truck series. And so this is, I had put in a couple years behind the scenes in production, working my way up the NASCAR production world. And so this will be my 25th season in TV or radio for the last 25 years straight. It was just crazy. It's insane. They're like, yes, I grew up in the sport, but to work in it and to have that long of a career as a woman or anything in what you're doing has been, I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful. Jamie knows there's been a lot of things we had to overcome in 25 years. And I'm sure we'll get into that.
That's what we want to get into.
Yes. But it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said 25 years, because it's been 25 years for me. I just completed my 18th year in NASCAR, but of course I come from Supercross, motocross, IndyCar, all that stuff. And it's crazy. I'm like, I'm not that old. 25 years I've been getting a paycheck. What in the world have we come to? But it's unbelievable that, you see all the changes every single year, and to know that we're still here and that we're still wanted. I honestly thought I would be done at 40. For some reason, I don't know why, I thought I would be done with TV and they wouldn't want me anymore after 40. I had it in my head.
If you think about it, I have a girlfriend in Orlando, and she was a news anchor. And she did kind of get the boot in her 30s. And now she's doing radio, and so that's how she created longevity. But it's like in motorsport, you just get more and more credible.
I think it's different things, right, Wendy?
Yes. Yeah. We've come so far in 25 years. I was just telling this story, and Jamie, I'm sure, experienced this. But the first assignment, like, they give us the logo gear, on your first on-air experience. And this was at Speed Channel. And they handed me a men's shirt.
Yep.
And I said, what am I supposed to do with this? This is a men's shirt. Where are the women's shirt? And they looked at me and said, oh, we don't make shirts for women. And so I questioned and challenged them. Well, why not? Why don't we have a women's cut shirt? Like, you're making us go on the air with these boxy, awful logo shirts, and then we had those awful men's cut fire suits we were wearing that I found. I was like, I'm getting this tailored. This is disgusting. You experienced the same exact thing 25 years ago.
I did. You just took me back to the first time. I actually was Speed Channel in 98 and 99, my first ever live TV show, and I was covering Supercross, and I got the ESPN t-shirt that was for the men that were 50 years older than me and like 5 sizes bigger than me, and I had to go with it. I remember tying them up in the back.
Tie it in the back, yeah.
And then the fire suit. That's all I knew, because at ESPN they were steadfast on you have to wear a fire suit, but from IndyCar, it was a danger thing. Yes. So we wore it for a reason. Then I come over to NASCAR. I'm like, we're not wearing this for a reason. So by the time I was done altering it every year, it wasn't even fireproof. It was just a shell of itself.
Yes.
But we learned over time. God bless. I look back that first year, Wendy, 2007. I'm like, I went on the air looking like that. I did not care, I guess, about what I looked like.
And it's so funny how far we are 25 years later, because now we're wearing regular clothing on the air. It's not, and they will have logos and whatnot, but it's so crazy to know. Even when my mother was in the 80s and 90s and she was escorted through the garage area because women were not allowed in the NASCAR garages, this is how I grew up, and watching my mother and with my father's racing career. And I remember when she got escorted through the garage because she was always traveling with my dad. My dad questioned, well, why can't she walk through here? And they said, only drivers, crew members, and car owners. And so my dad said, all car owners? And they said yes. And so the very next week, he registered my mother as the car owner in NASCAR. And she's been a car owner ever since. She's listed as the car owner.
Awesome.
So she started walking through the garage then.
That's a great story. Well, and the funny thing is, you guys were talking about wearing the fire suit. Remember when Delana Harvick wore the fire suit? Because I think she really thought that they were going to force us to wear fire suits, kind of following maybe the IndyCar suit, and all of us NASCAR wives that would, take notes or try to do stuff on the pit box, try to be a part of the team. Yes. They were saying that they were going to make us wear fire suits. And so Delana's like, I'm just going to get ahead of the game. And she did it. And then she's like, are you going to do it with me? And I'm like, hell no.
So funny story. When I was 14 years old, I was doing my dad's timing and scoring on the little laptop. That was like a thing back then. And he had Rain-X as the sponsor, and they wanted us in fire suits. And so because back then, there was no really age limit, right? And so my mom and dad are like, well, we're putting you in a fire suit so you look older and they won't question your age and just do your job. And so I was a scorer on a laptop in a fire suit when I was 14 years old on pit road. Talk about it's so crazy and how things have changed in the industry, but so grateful for it. Like, it's such cool experiences we went through in these last 25 years to see where we are. But it's amazing it was only 25 years ago.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about when you guys started. I know you came from, I call it like the cool extreme sports, the California girl, right? And you are the Southern girl who came up through racing, kind of knowing NASCAR. So it's kind of cool to have you both together because you came from such different backgrounds. But did you have a goal to say, I would like to be the lead announcer for a race one day? Or was it
Hell
something?
no.
Okay. Because
No.
that would intimidate me.
No, I'll tell you, Benny Parsons was a huge influence on me when I was about 15 years old. Benny Parsons, he lived down the street from us here in Concord, North Carolina. And he said to me, well, Wendy, what do you want to do? Do you want to drive cars? And I'm like, no, not really. I don't want to work on them. I don't want to drive. And my dad gave me opportunities to do all of that as a teenager. And I just didn't have an interest. And so Benny Parsons said to me, well, why don't you go down the media side and look into broadcasting? And I said to him, no women in our industry do that. And he goes, exactly. You don't have to learn racing. You have to learn broadcasting, TV, radio. And so that really planted a seed in me when I was 15 years old to kind of go down the public speaking route. When I was in high school, I started public speaking and then just kind of rolled into high school, college. And then after that, pursued that broadcasting. But that was really the catapult for me, was Benny Parsons just kind of planting that seed about women in our industry.
How cool. I did not know, because we knew Benny from living in Florida. We lived in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he would be walking his dog Winston all the time. And I would go and say, hey, Benny, and he played golf with Mike. And I remember he said, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't want to be a driver's wife. I came from a broadcast background and I want to do something for myself. And he's the one that said, well, write a book. You can write a book while you're sitting in the bus or traveling. And how cool that he did that to you. And
yes.
Wow. Oh, that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
To know
That's
about
really
that.
cool.
That's so sweet. And literally it just takes that one person
that
to
believes in you.
spark that interest. My story is really long and drawn out, and I won't get into it. But long story short, I was graduating from high school. I didn't like school, wasn't a good student at all. And I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew one thing, that I loved racing. I loved Supercross. I loved motocross.
As a young child, you were
I
into all
started
that.
at like 13. I was always a tomboy, and I just loved competition, which is weird. I'm an only child raised by a single mom. My mom's like, where in the hell did all this come from? She understands now, but I loved racing so much. And I fell in love with it. And then that became like my purpose. Like, okay, well, how do I get involved in this sport? And then I remember I would always be looking at the dirt bike magazines when I was in high school, like my senior year. I was such a bad student. But
I love this.
One thing stood out to me. There were no women doing what all the men were doing on TV. All the women were models, and that was fine. But I realized maybe there's something there. Why can't I be the one interviewing these guys? I know their stories. I want to bring their stories to people at home. So that kind of that pushed me. I moved to LA, and then I went up to a guy at a race, and he had an ESPN microphone, and I said, hey, how can I get involved? So literally that started.
So you had that is amazing.
It's really cool.
That you just
and really
walked up.
bold.
Yes.
Really bold.
I've always been bold, and I look back and I'm like, I don't think I'm that brave anymore. Like I didn't see gender. Honestly, my mom just taught me that. You know, I didn't have a dad around, so you did everything. You chopped wood, you cut the kindling, you started the fire before your mom got home, like all of those things. And I just said, this is what I want to do. I started like raising my hand, going to local races, didn't get paid anything. And then I realized, okay, well, if I want to take this seriously, I better get my degree. So I started going to San Diego State University and actually took it seriously. And then I became the voice of the Supercross series. So I was traveling on weekends, making like $500. And so one thing led to another. But long story short, to get to the booth, there was one person for me, like Benny was for you. It was Lee Diffie.
Yeah.
Really?
Awesome.
It was Lee Diffie.
Which is so funny. Yes, he was at Fox before, but we didn't really know each other. We've kind of gotten to know each other over the years. And it was literally like, it was COVID, I think. He gave me a call and he's like, hey, you're going to think this is crazy. And I'm like, this is so funny. Why are you calling me, Lee? What's happening? Like, he said, I've just been thinking, you know, there's all these women doing play-by-play in other sports and they're not doing it in NASCAR. You need to be that person. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that's a guy's job. Like, I've never even considered that before. You know?
And you know what? How terrible that none of us ever thought that a woman should be in that position. Because I'm like you, I always thought, well, that all the boys will always be in the booth,
right?
And the real hard workers will be on pit road.
That's exactly.
I mean, if you think about it, right?
Well, and I loved my job on pit road so much, so I never had aspirations of leaving that because I always thought like it's so far away from everything down here. I get to be in the middle of it, you know. So anyway, he put that little thing in my head and I went home and I emailed my boss, Jacob Ullman at Fox, and said, hey, I want to give this a shot if there's an opening. And he's like, let's talk about it, and called me back a week later and said, what do you think about the Arca Menard series? And I'm like, I've never covered it, but why not? Let's do it. There's no better time than doing it on national TV to see how I do.
How did you guys prep for this? Because I have to tell, I don't even know if you guys know this story or not, but remember, well, they still do the Better Half Dash, right? For MRO, it's a charity race. And they get the wives or women in motorsports to kind of compete against each other to raise money. And so the first year I did it, I was a terrible driver. I thought I was really good until I got on the car.
Did we ever race each other? Did we?
I was in the first year, and I was really good by myself. But you put other cars around me, I lost my freaking mind. But
I might have torn up a chassis for that.
I remember my husband was like, you are going to kick their butts. He was so excited. And that is probably the most disappointed my husband's ever been in me after that race. He was so embarrassed. He was so mad at me. I'm like, I finished 7th. Like, it's not like I finished last.
Were there 8 cars?
Well, no, there were 12. Dang it. I was mid-pack. I was a mid-pack car. But I was laughing. So the next year, Mike said, you're not doing that unless you get to practice. Because I didn't get to do all the practice because I was on air with Dave Moody.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I can't take all that time off on SiriusXM Speedway, so I'm not going to do it. Well, so then they call and they're like, will you cover the race? Will you do the play-by-play for the race with Darrell Waltrip? And I go, oh yeah, that'll be easy. Oh my gosh, all I was doing was trying to call the Better Half Dash, and I was like, I was stuttering. I was terrible. I just looked at Darrell and I go, that number 8 car, I don't know who's in it.
I think it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, and it's a different beast being in the booth and versus pit road because of all the action and the sights, the sounds, the smells on pit road, the lug nuts, when we had lug nuts flying by you. It's completely different from up top. It's a different perspective. Like even looking down, it seems so far away from up top when you're in the booth looking down at pit road after covering pit road for so many years. I'm sure you experienced that as well.
Yes, for sure. It's daunting when you first go up there and you look down, you're like, I'm in control of this whole thing. Like,
I'm a little freaked out right now.
Yes.
Why did I send that email?
And my first race was Daytona. So there's that. You start with your Super Bowl. Yeah. And it took a couple years of me not thinking like, am I out? Like, what am I going to hurt my reputation?
Yeah,
like
imposter syndrome, almost like imposter syndrome. Like, do I belong here? Why am I like
right? And I had that, and I question. You have a bad, something in a race that didn't go just as you hoped, or you didn't say it the way that you hoped. Mm-hmm. That I would question myself. Oh my God, why am I doing this? I've been on pit road. I'm established. Why am I going to tarnish my reputation by doing this? I don't have to do it. And then you get to a point where it's like, damn. I'm right where I need to be. I love what I do. I'm good at what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep going forward. But it took a little while because it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't see other women doing it.
And it's scary. It's scary. And that's what, when she says hard, she also means scary. I know.
Yeah.
I know that's what she means, because you have to look beyond fear. And that's what a lot of women.
And what people are going to say about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they will say it. Like, they are not scared. Those people at home on their laptops.
Yeah. Trust me.
But you just have to look beyond all of that. Shut out the noise. Somebody believed in you. Somebody gave you that opportunity. For me, it was Doug Rice at PRN when I was in the booth for the broadcast for the Cup Series, and then DirecTV Hot Pass. I worked with Doug Rice on that Hot Pass program when DirecTV had that pay-per-view, and that's how I met Doug Rice originally. Well, I had already known Doug Rice, but when we first worked together, and that kind of started our relationship years ago with DirecTV Hot Pass. And so I remember being assigned to someone like Doug Rice when it was 2 people calling the whole channel. And I thought, oh crap, I'm being assigned with Doug Rice. Like, I'm not knowledgeable enough for him. I'm not experienced enough for Doug Rice. And later down the road, Doug said, I said the same thing about you when I was assigned you. And I'm like, I was just a young, inexperienced, but it was moments like that kind of shape your career. You get past fear, you get past all the noise, and you do your job. And at the end of the day, it's behind you. And you asked about, like, do you set out to make history? No. Like, opportunities might be presented to you that you want to move forward, and you don't want to pass up those opportunities. Yes, she sent an email, but Jamie, you had to say yes, right? You had to agree to do it, and you had to be a little bit fearful in that moment. And I think that's the big difference. And so women just have to step outside and get a little fearless sometimes.
But it is cool still to say that you've made history, because no one can ever. I know one thing. My husband and I, Mike, he'll talk about, maybe if I would have stayed in trucks and not went to Cup so early, I could have made better history in the truck series, and that's where his heart really was. And we do talk about that. But he does say that Bill France Jr. told him when he won the first championship in the truck series, he said, you know why this is special? Nobody else can do this. Yeah. Right? Nobody else can be the first female announcer for a radio broadcast. No one else can be the first female, a head play-by-play announcer and both of you in big series. We're not talking about, a late model race, which is great, but we're talking about national racing series. And so no one can ever take that away from you guys. You were the first. And so when did that kind of set in? I know, like, the PR people are like, hey, we're going to promote this because this is great. But when did it kind of sink into you guys?
I think for me, when I got hired to do ARCA, the media was overwhelming. I couldn't believe the response. Like, ARCA Menard series had never had that kind of exposure. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I better put up or shut up at this point. It made it worse for me. I was so nervous going into, because I had talked about it so much. But it's the media after that, and every single interview they bring up all the firsts that I've done. And that's when you're like, I can either look at it as like, that's pretty cool, or damn, I'm old.
Damn, I'm old. That's what I do too. No. It's like you hear this list, and you're like, yeah, I'm old. I'm 25 years in. It's okay. It's okay.
Listen,
but what a blessing.
We're still around. Gosh. We're still at the top of our A game, right? Like, we're in the top series, covering and doing what we love. I'm so passionate about NASCAR. I'm passionate about covering this series, and it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like a job. It feels like a privilege and an honor to bring these stories to the folks at home. And I say the moment that goes away, that's when I should step away, but I still love what I do.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what's really neat, and I've always said this about my role in the sport, especially doing play-by-play, because you're always asked about it, that I feel like it's a responsibility that I carry for those watching, whether it's young women or young boys going to college. And I get that so much, Wendy. I'm sure you both have heard that a lot. And I feel like it's a responsibility in those moments that I thought, you know what, I'm not doing this next year. Like, this is just too much. I'm putting myself out there too much. I'm exposing myself. I thought, no, I'm not a quitter. I've never been a quitter. No. I like challenges, and I'm going to rise because people are watching me, and I want to be that person. I want to be the person that says, hey, producers, women can do it. Sign up that next woman. If it wasn't for Bobby Rahal, there is no Danica Patrick, because he believed in her and brought her to IndyCar. I'm not doing play-by-play if it's not for Jacob Ullman saying, hey, I believe you. I believe in you, and we're going to give you a chance. It always takes that person that gives you a chance. And I hope that those watching us know that it's possible and they open those doors.
I always tell people when, especially younger women come up to me and they said, do you have any advice on how to be successful? And I always say, don't be scared to be told no. Because do you know how many times we are told no? And not just because we're women, just in life in general, you're told no all the time. And people are so intimidated by that they don't go after their dreams because they don't want to be told no.
Or one person's opinion of you cannot dictate your success. Yeah. I have a story that I tell to a lot of young male and female when they ask about our industry. And I was let go after a contract ended at a network by one executive. And 30 days later, I was rehired by the same network by a different executive for the Cup Series in a higher profile position. And that was for NASCAR race day after being let go from the Truck Series. And I stayed on that program for a decade. So it took one person, one person's opinion where I could have been shattered and could have been felt like I don't belong here. But it really does take someone that believes in you and keeping your head high and not burning any bridges when that happens.
Okay, but what did you do in that period? Because like young Angie, I would have been a hothead, right? I would have been like, what? And I would have been, because I had something similar happen to me in radio, kind of like that as well. But and it's funny, I got really angry, I got really bitter. So what did you do in that 30 days? Yeah,
so my dad, being the solid head that he is, he said, you never burn any bridges in this sport. So there was never a bad word said. I never talked bad, but what I did was just put myself out there and reached out to all the contacts that I knew about getting another gig. You move forward. And before anything else is even formulating by then within those 30 days, and it was the off season, it was like, when all that stuff happens with contracts, I was presented with a higher profile position. So it worked out in the end. But for those 30 days, you do question yourself, and you just have to keep your head up, because you can carry on, you can be successful, and you can't let one person saying no dictate the rest of your life. Could you imagine if I would have stopped then? That was in 2006. Right.
I mean, you've done so much more, and you became the first as well.
Right.
Because after that journey.
Just an example. Move on, carry on, and keep your head high.
I love that. Did you ever experience anything like that?
I've been pretty lucky just because I was with ESPN for so long, and that's the network that's another story that, after I was the live announcer for Supercross for however many years, I was paying my dues. Finally, I was like asking around, who's the boss? Who makes the decisions for television?
I love this. I love that Jamie is like this. Like, I mean, and when you see Jamie, if she's got like the ponytail, right? The beautiful smile, but like, don't mess with her, which I'm going to bring up a really fun Jamie little story here in a little bit that I witnessed. That is one of the most awesome kick butt stories ever.
Well, I'm competitive, but I'm also just true to myself, for better or worse. It hasn't gotten me in trouble yet. But
I love it.
The older I get, I think that the more vocal that I will be. But yes, so I found out who the boss was, and I picked up the phone one day and I was like, just give me 10 minutes. I literally sold myself to a man named Rich Feinberg. He's in charge of IMS Productions. He was top boss at ESPN and motorsports programming for so long. And he was tough. I mean, he was really tough. And he's like, I understand. I know your work. I know what you do. He's like, I'll give you a shot. You've got basically X Games. I'll put you on X Games, see how it goes. And I said, I promise I won't let you down. So X Games, and that went into 14 years as my boss until our contract ended with NASCAR. So he brought me into IndyCar, brought me into NASCAR. And
I was going to ask how you migrated from being in the X Games and in the whole two-wheel world into...
Yeah, and I've always been so focused. I love Supercross, so I stay authentic to that and don't think outside. And all of a sudden, I'm like, gosh, IndyCar's pretty cool. And then ESPN, hey, what do you think of IndyCar? I'm like, well, it's 2 wheels versus 4. I could figure it out. And then when I knew they were getting the contract back in 2007 with NASCAR, I thought, I want to get NASCAR. Like, to get to do that before I'm 30 would be cool in some capacity, right? So I was at an X Games, and I went up to the bosses right when the show ended.
I love it. I love how she just goes up to the bosses. Who's in charge? Who's in charge over here?
And I said, hey, just so you guys know, I'm sure, well, let me back up. Somebody planted something in my head, Rusty Wallace.
Yeah. Rusty Wallace.
2006, he worked with us at ESPN. So he was going to be the voice in the booth for ESPN NASCAR.
I remember that.
But they made him do IndyCar in 2006, the whole IndyCar season. He was in the booth. Oh, yeah. fantastic. I mean, the stories that year of that guy. We all know how he talks off camera, like him adjusting. But we were at like the year-end celebration in IndyCar, and he said, "So Jamie, you're coming with us next year, right?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "Rusty, everybody's calling the bosses. I'm not that person to just pile on and be like, I want to be on there." He said, "Listen, let me tell you something. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you don't say something, they don't know." So fast forward to X Games. I went up to the boss's office. I said, "You guys probably already know who you're going to hire. I just want you to know that I would love to do NASCAR." And I'll leave it there. And I left. They called me 2 months later and said, "You're part of the super team. You already were before you said that. You just confirmed
how cool.
it." So it was meant to be. But I've always put my aspirations out there. And I think the reason why I've never gone to, football or basketball, I was offered those because I love what I do and I didn't want to start over.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I was going to ask if you guys have been offered a different sport and if you wanted to, because I could totally see you at the Super Bowl.
I love football these days. I never did before, but I love, right?
Me too. What is the weird thing? Because I'm more into it now as well. Yeah.
I was not a football fan, and my brother was like, you should go outside of NASCAR. And I'm like, but I love NASCAR.
I know.
Like,
it's hard to
this is
leave,
my
right?
heart. This is my soul, and this is my passion. My nephews are 16 years old, and they play football, and they're coming up, and one of them is headed on that pathway to college. And I feel like because of him, I've become a really big sports fan in the football world, and now I'm watching games, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could do that now.
Yeah.
But I never had an interest in it. And to me, if you're not interested in doing that, you shouldn't do it, right? You have to be passionate. You can't fake it. We're very authentic with what we do, and it's not something you can pick up a book and learn in NASCAR, in motorsports. You just have to absorb all this information and then tell these stories and be passionate about it, because I think that really separates you from just being a reporter and being, a true mainstay in the sport.
I love the fact that what you just brought up, because I got offered a gig on Big Ten radio because I'm a big Ohio State Buckeye fan. Oh, yeah. And that was before I even knew what NASCAR. I was always a big Ohio State football fan. And so I had somebody from SiriusXM say, "You should do, one of the Big Ten shows." And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "What? Why? You love Ohio. That's all you talk about is being a Buckeye and all this Ohio stuff." And I'm like, I'm not passionate like I am about racing.
Right.
And I don't think I could do as good of a job. Now, could I do? Yes, I could, because if I put my head to it, I can do it, right? But I didn't think I would be passionate, and I didn't think that I could be authentic. And you just said a word right there. I just didn't feel authentic.
Yes.
In that space. And so I turned it down.
Yeah. And something to me, I think I'm always driven by people saying you can't do it or being one of the few, right? And I always said I don't want to be a dime a dozen women in other sports. That wasn't interesting to me. Like, I wasn't going to go compete with them for a role just to be on TV. I'm here because my passion for racing. I found my calling because I loved racing. I didn't find my calling because I wanted to be a reporter and I want to be a star. So I think that's interesting. And I always tell people, find something you're passionate about and follow it.
And the funny thing is, when she just mentioned competition, I've known Jamie for 25 years. I've never felt like she was my competitor. We always, I'm always lifting other women up. There's room at the table for multiple successful women.
I'm going to brag on both of you guys right now, because I have experienced that from both of you. And you don't understand what just a little thing can do for somebody. I think I posted a little deal on Instagram, just the logo of my new podcast. And you were like, "Hey, that's awesome." And I hadn't talked to you in years. And I'm like, "Oh, well, Wendy saw my post. That's so cool." And Jamie, you're always sending me these sweet little messages. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm still cool.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
still
very
relevant.
cool.
Well, but
You have such great energy. I'm a big energy person. And that's what, I'm not the smartest person out there, wasn't very good in school, but I'm passionate about what I do and I bring energy, and I want people to enjoy what they're watching or listening to, and you have that, and I think energy is everything.
I did say that to you. I said I really enjoyed your show. I was coming home from Bristol and I was listening to it. I'm like, you have great energy. I just love it. I want to hear more. When you leave people on the edge of their seats, like, oh, that was fun to listen to, watch, whatever. That's how you've created entertainment for fans at home, and so you've done a great job at that.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's really the whole reason why I wanted to do this podcast. And I wanted season 1 to really just be women, so we could prove.
And just take Mike away, right? Let's just. And in fact, actually, he's like, what? He doesn't even really know what I'm doing. Like, he really doesn't. He's like, what are you doing again? I'm like, I'm
You're like, drop me off at the studio,
Yeah,
pick
just
me up.
let
I'll
me-
tell you when I'm done working.
I don't even want to waste my energy right now because I don't want him to influence me on this. I want this to be mine, right?
Yeah.
I want this to be my whole thing. And he's just like, okay, whatever. But it all started, to be honest with you guys, a couple years ago. There was a female, and I won't say who it was, but there was a female in the industry that was not being nice to other women. And it really ruffled my feathers. It upset me. It's not that it made me angry. It hurt me.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's room at the table, right? There's room at the table. And I mean, I wanted to do really what you guys are doing. And I remember back in 98 when I first started getting involved in motorsports, I would dream up these, ideas like, oh, I think it'd be so good to do like a show where you like get one-on-one, kind of what podcasting is now, really, where you could have a real conversation with these drivers or their wives or whatever. But I never went after it. And so that's why I'm hoping if people listen, they'll go, hey, well, Jamie Little had the guts to just do this, and Wendy could have, done anything she wanted in racing, and she chose the hardest path, outside of her family race team. You did something that was very foreign, really, to your family.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And something totally different. And so if we can encourage other women and then also be a woman to encourage and keep everybody lifted up, because it's hard. I mean, let's just get into some, not the negatives, but some of the challenges that maybe you faced being a woman in the sport, especially you two going in the booth, from other men kind of going, really? You going to take that on? Like, hey, little girl, you can do that,
Yeah. Well, you deal with the comments and things. It's funny. I have this funny memory, like negative stuff I push out. Honestly, my husband always says, I don't know how you don't remember those things. Or if it was negative in my past, if somebody said something, I usually push it away. I didn't have a lot of negative time, but it's all how you see it and how you take it in, right? Are you offended or not? I don't get offended.
No,
you
I
can't
don't
get
either.
offended. Not to be, you've
That's
got to
great
have a thick
advice.
skin. Whether you're in broadcasting for anything, but especially when you're one of the few women in a garage and you're around men. Like, it is what it is. Don't get involved if you're going to be offended by comments.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
You're going to get the comments. And I think it's Gail Davis was, car owner for years, the cat car, right? Bill and Gail Davis. And I always admired her. And, and she talks real slow. And she's like, Angie, you just walk as tall as you can, honey, because I know you're short. And she'd be like, but you put them shoulders up and you walk straight and you put your head up and you don't put that head down on pit road and you march forward. And I've never forgotten that. And it's like, I always tell people, like, if you are going to get in any sport, not just motorsports, really any industry at all, you cannot be the whiny baby, right? You cannot go, oh, they said this to me and it upset me and I'm going to turn you in. Well, just get past that. Surround yourself with people that bring you up. And like you said, put those negative thoughts behind you and forget them.
And I don't know about you, Wendy, but I look back at some of the outfits I used to wear, turtlenecks. Like, I did everything just so you listen to me and you don't look at what I'm wearing. I mean, that's a big part of who we are. But I feel like in the beginning, it was all about hiding that. Just be out there, be respected, don't be looked at in those ways. And as we've gotten older and you get credibility, your personality comes out. Like you mentioned, wearing our own clothes on the air. Like Fox doesn't believe in fire suits. So I had to find my own personality on air with my own clothes. Like, what do I want to portray here? But it's funny. I look back and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I was trying so hard just to cover up and blend in. Like, maybe I should have let it go a little bit.
I'm totally going to Google all your old, I'm going to Google Jamie Little Supercross. I love it.
Old men's logoed shirts.
Yes. I got some of those. I'm like little stick legs with this big box shirt. Not a good look. And
you know how
kept me
many
around.
race team things I've thrown away or I've given to other people because I'm just like, thank you for giving this to me. I'll never wear it a day in my life, but thank you.
I remember when my dad had that all-female pit crew in the 80s.
Yes.
So I grew up, sitting in my backyard. I was too young to go over the wall. A lot of people say, were you on your dad's all-female pit crew? No, I was 11 years old, right? So I'm sitting in the backyard, and we had a house in Chicago at the time, and they practiced in our driveway of our backyard. And the city of Chicago is very small driveways and small properties. And so I would go back there on the weekends, and all the girls would be pit stop practicing, and they would go to the racetrack, and I would hear all the comments as a young girl that they were saying about my aunt and my mother, and especially at racetracks like Talladega. Remember the Talladega infield?
Oh, yeah.
And so my mom would just say, cover your ears, Wendy. And
I love it. Cover your ears.
But I would and your eyes, because you would see things going through the Talladega infield.
Some things haven't changed.
No,
Yeah, exactly.
they have not. But I because I was raised that way, and the comments that were said to my mom and my aunt and the all-female pit crew, and how they responded to them, and how they kept their heads high. And my dad won a championship with that crew, right? And so they proved that they earned their spot there. They were faster than a lot of the guys that year, which was impressive. They were taught by the Wood brothers, which were big on pit stops back then. Like
they created them, really.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, I talk about my childhood, and that's how I was raised, around a lot of strong women in a male dominated industry. So I just didn't think anything of it. When I came along, I belonged. Like, to me, I belonged. And if you had a problem with me, that's on you. That's not me. So I thank my mom a lot for that, for what she did. She was very brave, and for all the women that did that, and how it's changed. And could they do that today? It would be a different story. They would be much more respected today. They weren't very well respected years ago, but they made a statement, and here we are 30 years later talking about that movement.
Yeah, we just celebrated the 30 years.
Yes.
I think we highlighted the ladies.
Yes.
They came to a race,
Yes.
and we did it on the ARCA broadcast. Yes, so amazing.
I need to have your mom on the show to talk about that. That would be a great.
Her parents are so great.
I know.
Oh, thank you.
They are.
Your
They
dad
are.
is
They
like,
really
I
are.
love seeing him in the garage. Like, he's just a big teddy bear and just so loving.
He's always been a big teddy bear. Big Bill is just a big teddy bear at
But
heart.
it's interesting you said that about your mom, and the strength that you got from your mom. And I think part of it was me being an only child. I had to be very independent. I grew up in Lake Tahoe. You're just outdoors, and I rode horses and walked with the coyotes, like crazy stuff. But another part of that was my mom was a showgirl. And my mom did not
Really?
grow up being a dancer. She was a
Wow.
showgirl in Lake Tahoe. If you look up
Oh
Lake
my
Tahoe
gosh.
Entertainment, my mom was the seamstress. She sewed the costumes. And the choreographer came to her one day and was like, "You have the look that I'm looking for in my show. Will you audition?" And my mom taught me from that moment. She said, "You say yes and you figure it out later."
Yes.
Oh,
And-
I love that.
And I
love
took that
it.
with me. And my mom became a showgirl. That's how she raised me. She didn't make much money, but she would go to work at night, and I took care of stuff during the day.
I love
and
that story.
that is
Yeah.
awesome.
Learning something about Jamie.
Yeah.
here.
I
So
know.
yeah, so I saw my mom. I watch her, and it was a showgirl show, like back in the day, topless. So I was around all these dancers, men, women, like they were doing their thing. But I saw my mom, like that was not her history. She had to learn it, and she became the lead. So I had that example, I think, that really gave me the confidence.
Yeah.
That I, like you, Wendy, I was like, I belong here. Even though I didn't grow up in racing, like I felt like I belonged there because I proved myself.
So it's crazy because I worked in radio before I got involved with NASCAR, and I was dealing with more rock bands. So like literally my nickname was the writer bitch, because I would put these bands in their places. I was like, I ain't taking your crap. And so I guess me getting, I kind of had that confidence as well, where they would try to walk all over you. And I'm like, listen, I've got so many people out here. You need to get on stage. You need to do this. And no, I'm not dividing your M&Ms by color. Like, no, you're not degrading me like that. And I would just laugh it off. I wouldn't. But it's almost like you get respect by having that kind of brash attitude,
Right.
because I would say, oh, I will reward you if you are respectful to me. But I have a job to do. And I think that is kind of the attitude you need to have in the NASCAR garage. And I felt like I struggled a little bit in the beginning. And I think, I get angry with myself that I didn't go after some more of the things that I wanted to do. But I also believe things happen for a reason, and you're on a path for a reason. But I opted to marry a NASCAR driver, right? So I stopped working in the garage. And then as soon as we get together, Mike's like, well, this is great. You just get to hang out now. And I'm like, no, I need to work. I need to do something. And he's like, why? And I'm like, well, I have this school loan. And he's like, well, I'll pay your school loan. I'm like, no. Like, I put myself through school. That's something I'm proud
Good for
of.
you.
But I had to, so Mike knew that I was serious about wanting to do things, but I don't think I was taken as seriously in the garage, because they're like, oh, well, she's a driver's wife.
Right.
She flew here on her private jet. And I'm like, well, that's Mike's jet. It's not mine. And, so I kind of,
Good for you that you didn't give up on your dreams.
yeah,
Because
I
think
gave
a
up
lot
on
of,
some of them,
Yeah.
but I at least did some things. I gave myself goals and things that I wanted to do. And that's where I wish people would just I wish I would have had the balls to do it. There's been so many times where I could have went and said, listen, let me do. I never wanted to do like pit road or anything like that because I wanted to watch Mike race and I wanted to be that. But I love lifestyle. I love doing what I'm doing with you guys. Getting to talk and dig in really deep and get to know people's personalities and hear new stories and be like, oh my God, now I like you even more. I didn't know that about you. And so I just wish I would have had enough guts like both of you to kind of just say, let me do this. Instead, I was like, well, they're not going to take me seriously. So I'm just going to kind of sit here and, write a book instead. It's a little bit more behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you believe wholeheartedly, why not go for it? If you have the ways and the means and the ideas, because I always have ideas too. When, and sometimes I'm like, is it really worth it? Do I really want to keep pushing? I became play-by-play at 42 years old. And I remember thinking, why in the hell am I getting outside of my comfort zone? Well, it's good for me. It's good for me, right? And it was so good for me. It doesn't matter what age you are to get outside your comfort zone. Like, it's gratifying. It's hard. It's challenging. It's scary, but it's so gratifying. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. Just get out of your comfort zone sometimes. It rewires your brain a little bit. And I think you'll never know what comes of it.
That's my big thing now. Every year I try to come up with what's something I'm scared of and how can I conquer that?
It's good.
Getting out of a comfort zone.
Yep.
And I'm 52 now. So it's like I'm trying to, how much longer can I keep doing these, right? But I want to keep going.
And that's why before we started recording this, Jamie and I were talking about our businesses and how, we have had other businesses outside of NASCAR and getting uncomfortable with things outside of our comfort zone of NASCAR, right? And going down that entrepreneurship path, which was really scary. I did that 6 years ago, but you don't regret these leaps, right? You don't regret. I've never regretted a step that I took. And yet they could be learning moments. Yes, you might have learned something. Maybe it didn't go as planned, but I've never looked back and thought I should not have done that. I think that's what people need to be more forthright on and have more confidence, is just taking those leaps of faith, even when it's scary, it's fearful. Do it anyways, because the worst thing, you're not going to fail. There's no such thing as failure. It's learning moments.
See, I need you in my head when I'm thinking of all these things.
You tell them a life, I do this life speaking at Burn Boot Camp too. So this is right up my alley. I love being fearless. I love rewiring mindset, especially in women. That's mainly our audience at Burn Boot Camp. So I talk to a lot of women. Yeah.
And you've inspired me. I follow you. I don't think we all realize how much we inspire one another sometimes. Right. And it's so funny because I'll see your post and I'm going, oh my God, how is she doing that? That's so cool. And I'm like, and I get all geeked up and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go walk for 30 minutes now because I just saw Wendy. And then when you do the arc, I get nervous for you. Can I just tell you, I get so nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, I want her to be so good and you are really good. But because I care, I get nervous. And Mike goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I just want Jamie to really do good at this because they've pumped her up so much. And I don't want anyone to say anything bad about her. I'm going to get very angry. And he goes, she's doing a great job. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
But it's cool how we all can still try to support one another.
Absolutely. But I think when something is new, when you're the first to do something, people are automatically just going to love to jump on the bandwagon. To me, the most gratifying thing is when you're there, you're established, and people shut up. You can make a mistake. It's okay.
That.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I can make mistakes now, and it's okay. I know I screwed up. I don't care what any of you say. I'm harder on myself than any of you.
Right.
But we've earned that. Right? My first year, maybe play-by-play or first year on pit road, you make a mistake. You're like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. They all hate me. I don't know what I'm talking about. And then after it's like, And I think that's the way that fans see it too. It's just when it's the shiny penny, it's really easy to pile on.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So I have to bring up a topic here because this is still to the day one of the most fun. I don't even know if you know. Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
2008 Long Beach.
So I was going to bring this
I know
up.
What this is.
Yes.
Best day of my life until I got married and had my children.
There you go. Jamie should have been a driver. Okay, Danica, look out.
Hell
It should have been Jamie Little behind the wheel. So anyways, so Mike was doing the Toyota Long Beach Celebrity Grand Prix, and it was a really cool event that they did. I mean, they would bring in celebrities and then they'd have 2 or 3 pros that would come in the Toyota family, and you guys would go do camps. I mean, you'd go train. 3 days. We were isolated in the desert.
Yes. Just us. Nobody was allowed to talk to anybody. It was wild.
Yeah, it was intense, kind of a cool deal.
Yeah.
So Ashley, I call her my pretend daughter, and she still manages all of her publicity. And so we were laughing, and I'm like, what year what year did Jamie first do this, or what year did Wendy do this? And then she started laughing. She goes, oh, well, here's something funny from the Wikipedia. And we're laughing about Wikipedia because Wikipedia don't lie. Come on, right? And we were laughing at, and so in Wikipedia it says, but in 2008, she edged Mike Skinner on the final lap to win the Long Beach. And I was like, I will never forget that for as long as I live. Because, girl, you were on the wheel.
Oh, my gosh. That was the coolest thing that I've ever
awesome.
gotten to do. Oh, my gosh.
You guys Google this and watch it. It's awesome.
Well, you want to prove that you belong. And I remember when I got asked to do that, I had been doing NASCAR for 2 years, but the drivers were kind of hearing that I was going to do this. And like Kevin's like, don't come back without the steering wheel. And Tony Stewart's like, you better make us proud. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm taking it to heart. I better go out there. So I put more laps on that racetrack trying to dial it in. And I was like, okay, I've got something here. And that race was incredible. Like, I don't know who I was. Something came out, but I was fierce. And the last lap, your amazing husband, champion, got behind me and tried to spin me in the hairpin right at the end. And I was like, hell to the no.
Was true.
And I became the second woman to ever win it in like 32 years.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I mean, like, we're talking like people like Martina Navratilova, who like, she tried for years to win this thing.
Yeah.
Dora.
Dara Torres.
I mean, Dara Torres.
The swimmer.
Yeah,
she was
Olympic
amazing.
swimmer. I mean, like, ridiculous athletes, female athletes. And Jamie's the one that brings it up. I was like, yeah. And it was so funny because after the race, I was like, ooh, you've got your butt burned like that. And Mike goes, well, I could have wrecked her. And I'm like, I would have kicked your butt. If you would have wrecked Jamie Little, how embarrassing. Like, I would have totally been so upset with you. He goes, listen, she drove her butt off. He goes, because I did get into her a little bit, and she won that race. So he admitted it. And let me tell you, he has taken so much slack from that. It's so
my gosh.
That's
funny.
hilarious.
We laughed
Well, we're
so
on the
hard about that.
podium spraying champagne together, but I couldn't look at him. I'm like, oh my God, I just feel like he's going to hate me. He was beat by a girl. Like, I just can't.
He did say, he goes, well, I could have wrecked her. I could have wrecked her. I was like, I would have punched you. I'm seriously, how embarrassing if
But
you
it
would
was
have done
such a thrilling finish. And let me tell you, the next day I woke up and I'm like, that wasn't real. Like I
girl, it
dreamt
was
this.
real.
I woke up and opened my hotel room door, and on the floor was the Long Beach paper. I was on the front page.
That's amazing.
But the thing that makes it even
so
better
fun.
was that day was the final IndyCar Champ Car race together, and then Champ Car was going away.
That's right.
It was a big deal. I was on pit road for that race, but I saw that and I'm like, I'm on the front page. Like, life doesn't get better. I could die now. I'm good.
That's
good.
amazing.
Oh, let me tell you, I can't believe that you have not just had some fun.
I've thought about it. I honestly thought I have over the years thought about calling her brother and being like, "Can I just give it a whirl?"
You
oh my
should.
gosh,
You
or do
should.
some of the vintage racing, like SVRA.
Yes,
They do some fun stuff where you can get on some road courses.
Well, the GR series for
The GR
Toyota,
Cup,
I went to. Yes,
I
I
don't
talked to
know
him.
if
You
you
should
know
do
they
GR Cup.
they race those school buses here at Charlotte.
Oh my!
I stuffed Kenny Wallace in the wall just one time for a
I
win.
do remember that now that you've said that.
I mean, don't be jealous, Jamie.
That's so good.
That's awesome. I
Kenny
forgot
Wallace
about
is like, you put me in the wall. I'm like, hell yeah, I did.
that. I'm a Venturini. You think I'm going to take your crap, Herman?
That is so good.
We had so much fun. Like those kind of moments, though. No matter what the race is.
Yes.
I mean, whether it's for charity, that was a charity, but it doesn't matter. They're just fun. They make memories, and
They do.
That
and
first
especially
better
when you
half.
go against drivers that you're just
Right.
like, yep.
Oh no, she did it.
She
Yeah.
really
Girlfriend did
That's
it.
a real race. That was
Well,
a
I
real
think there's
race.
something inside of you, especially for me, like proving that you belong. Like, there's nothing better than going out and showing the drivers. Like, I get what you're saying and how you talk,
Yes.
and I interview you, and I can't be you,
Yeah.
but let me show you that I will put in the time and the effort to show that I love it that much and I respect what you guys do.
Yeah.
So for me, I took something of that away. Just
I will
proving
say,
myself.
honestly, when I did the Better Half Dash, which is like a joke, it's like a little legend car, but when I did it, I did learn so much about how hard it is
Yes. Oh my
gosh,
to like
so
run the same
Bandoleros.
line.
Yeah,
And,
the Bandoleros. My body was sore after running
Bandoleros,
those.
that right?
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
wedges, Bandolero.
Bandoleros.
Yes. And
well, the amount of like sweat, the nerves, everything mental that
Oh, it
goes
was-
with it.
yeah.
How those drivers do it
I
is
don't
beyond
know.
me.
I
Yes.
don't either. And the funny thing is, like, I was kind of like you. I'm very competitive. I mean, I played soccer growing up, and I've always been very competitive. I mean, Mike and I might get a divorce if we continue playing pickleball together because we're like awful. Like, people are like, you guys just need to play on separate
My money's
courts.
on
It's-
you.
and
My
thank
money's
you.
on you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
But I remember when I was practicing, Mike could not do the first practice. So my coach was Ray Evernham and Aaron Evernham, which was pretty cool to have. And I just remember Ray goes, "All right, Ange, you got your seatbelt on?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, is it tight?" And I go, "Yep." And then he went, boom, and I went, "Can't breathe." And he goes, "Well, that's the way it's supposed to be." And then I started panicking. I'm like, how do I get out of this thing? Can I punch this top roof off? Because I'm getting claustrophobic. I don't like this. But when I got behind there, I came back in, and I'll never forget Tommy Baldwin, Ray, I think it was Matt Kenseth. There was a couple other people, and they were dying laughing. And I'm like, what is so funny? They're like, dude, you go into the corner like Mike Skinner. Like, this is hilarious. Like, you are going in way too hard. Like, you need to back her down. There's no way you could. And I was just like, what? And then Mike and I we did a private practice because I didn't get to do one of the practices. And so we put cones out in the drag strip at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And I'll never forget. I mean, I had dirt on my face. Like, I was so sore because I was trying so hard. I remember he was so proud of me. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you are awesome." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And then I remember when they announced my name, I had like a bunch of fans because I was on radio. So I had the whole crowd, and I was like, they think I'm like Jeff Gordon. This is like so cool. I was like, and then I got in the car and made a butt of myself. I was so mad. I want to do it again because I think I never got to practice with cars around, but that's what makes you appreciate how hard it is. What these guys are doing. It really is hard. And so sometimes when people act like they, hey, I know, I drive the Richard Petty Experience and I was the fastest car in my group. I'm like, that's cute. I'm glad that you're saying that, but you don't know how much on a different level these guys are.
Their mindset is insane, and their sense of just the details and their patience in the car. I just don't know how the drivers do it. They're super talented.
I hate that this hour has gone so fast. It's bumming me out.
Has it been an hour?
I know. We're going to do this again, by the way. When you guys do the first of something again, because I know you guys will, Jamie's going to ask for something probably in the next 10 minutes, and you're going to be like, I'm going to do another business, and we're going to totally do this again. But we always like to look in the rearview mirror, just for one piece of advice, though you guys have given a book full of advice throughout the whole hour. But if you look in the rearview mirror, is there something that maybe you did that you're like, maybe if I would have done this differently, or I would suggest give people advice that maybe they should go about it in a different manner, just something that we can leave from.
Like I said, I don't have any regrets of anything I've done. Just going through those moments, I think you have to go through the tough waters when you have a tough situation, and just feeling it and feeling those tough moments and knowing how to get on the other side of them. I think that's the biggest key takeaway from me in my 25 years is just moving forward with your head held high no matter what happens to you, and keeping it your goal of what you want to accomplish in life, and having that path. And if it goes off path and that's not what you had planned, make the best of that. Like, do the best that you can at what opportunity you are given, no matter what that opportunity is, big or small. I say yes to all the things. I do say yes to all the things within reason, right? But when it comes to opportunities, you want to take every opportunity and just be the best you can in that situation, whether it's a dog show that Jamie has done. Like, she does fantastic on those. I'm so entertained when I've watched her do those. Like, I love it. Like, we've watched those at home, and so that's just an example.
Are you not kind of
like,
proud? Like, you
I'm
have
so
everybody
proud.
at Thanksgiving, and I'm like, oh, that's our friend. She does NASCAR.
She
we
also
know
does
her.
NASCAR, but
Yeah,
she
we know
loves
her.
dogs, and she's really good at this too. So, but that's my example. Like, no matter what opportunity is presented to you, make the best of that and do 100% of what you can do in your abilities. And if you don't have that ability, practice, right?
Right.
Practice until you get
Another
good at it.
gem right there.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to outwork the next person. That has always been my thing. I think it's more important now than ever to talk about don't be afraid to work.
Yes.
That's the only way you're going to get ahead. You can't give up because somebody else gets the job. You have to do the work. And that's what it took for me. Like I said, like, I had to work really hard at it. I wasn't raised around it. This was very foreign to me, but I loved it so much that it wasn't a job. Like you had said, Wendy, like, when you love it so much, you wake up and you're excited to do what you're doing. And oh, by the way, you make a great living, and I get to have a beautiful family. And that's another thing. Stop to smell the roses too. I put everything. You have to put so much on hold. And I did for my 20s, which I don't regret. It was all about work. Work came first. I dated, I did all of those things, but I knew I wanted to have a family. And when I turned 30, I made that an effort. And I fell in love with Cody, my amazing husband of almost 14 years. We have 2 beautiful kids, and it's a lot. It's a lot to juggle, but you have to have a teammate to be able to make it work. And don't be afraid to juggle it all. I know a lot of women, that time will pass them. You know, they want to have a family, but then they're chasing their dream. And I say, just stop and smell the roses.
And by the way, both these ladies worked pregnant on pit road.
Oh, yes.
I remember. You guys, like, I remember watching and go, you guys rocked being pregnant on pit road. It was like amazing.
I planned my pregnancy around the off season. So I knew like in a 2-3 week time frame when I needed to get pregnant in the spring. Thankfully, it happened.
Listen to her; she's such a planner. I knew.
So when it happened, and so I needed an off-season baby, and that's my son Caleb. And so at Homestead, which was the season finale, then I was 37 weeks, and I had contractions on the air because I was overworking. I was running pit road too much, and I had contractions. I remember it was during the Xfinity practice.
Oh my gosh!
And I didn't tell my producers until after the show was over because I knew if I told them, they would take me off the air. And so I got through the show. But the next day was the season finale. I was not going home, Angie. No, you're staying in. We're going to season finale.
Hey, buddy, welcome to the world. But during the off season, I planned this.
So I rested that night, and the next day was the season finale for the Cup Series. I got through it. It was fine. We were fine. But I did have contractions live on TV, which was quite interesting.
Gosh, what that look, that expandable fire suit that we'd wear. Our last IndyCar race, I was 37 weeks pregnant up in Toronto, I think. So literally IndyCar had a team ready if I went into labor to deliver this child.
I love it. It's like a driver. They always have a backup driver just in case.
Always have a backup plan, but I'm not coming off.
You probably carried your chart with you. I had my medical records with me to have a baby in any city.
Yes,
I was ready.
I probably did.
I was
for
ready.
that. Yes, you could
You
have
were
been
ready.
a Canadian baby just because my work. But it all worked out.
I love it. I love the fact. Okay, so if we look forward, what's up? What's going on? What's with Jamie Little?
Gosh, I don't know. It's funny. Like, I don't set out for all these goals. They just kind of happen when the timing is right. And, you know, I get asked a lot, do you want to do the Cup Series play-by-play? I don't know. Yes. I work too damn hard to say, no, I'm complacent and I just want to do this series or that series. I'd love to keep doing the truck series. If I got offered Cup one day down the road, great. But I love what I'm doing. I'm content. I'm staying busy. And there may even be some more IndyCar in my future.
Oh, I like
That's
that.
awesome.
I like that. Wendy?
So I started a business 6 years ago with Burn Boot Camp with a gym franchise. And I thought in my head I was only going to do one business. And COVID came out. After COVID, another opportunity presented itself with a second location. So I took that opportunity. And then about a year and a half later, another opportunity came up and I couldn't pass up that opportunity. So here I am with 3 businesses and 54 employees. And oh, yes, I travel in NASCAR. I don't know what the next step will be.
I don't think you can take on anything else, Wendy, but you would.
My plate is full. But you make room, you make time. So no matter what it is, you juggle things around. Families first. My 13-year-old son is into basketball and he travels with his team. So that's priority for me, yes. But I also have all these families that rely on me as a business owner. And so I keep that in the back of my mind as well as I make decisions with entrepreneurship. But it's fun. It's challenging. It's outside my comfort zone. And here we are 6 years into that pathway. And it's grown into something more than I ever imagined. And I'm blessed to be able to cover the Cup Series at year 25. I never would have thought I've been doing this many years later. So I'm grateful for the fans listening at home and supporting Jamie and myself in all these years that we've been doing this because it's really the fans keep us going. We're here because of the event.
Well, you guys are amazing, and I'm just going to already invite you to do another episode, and I think we're going to do it in the evening, and I'm going to bring wine.
Yes.
Amazing.
Would that not be
we're
the
gonna
best?
get deep.
Then we're going to go even deep. We'll go, but listen, thank you guys. She's got the mic. This was the perfect title because both of you basically just grabbed the mic and have been so successful for so many years, and still, really, you two are the top, I think. You're the top at the
That's
game.
very kind.
It's wild with so much turnover and everything in this day and age to be able to hold a job for this long that you love so much. Just keep on ticking. I don't have a limit. I'll keep as long as they'll have me. I'll be here.
Same.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
love it.
Thank you.
Okay, just let me know white, red wine, whatever we're going to have the next time.
Red.
All of it.
All of it. I love it. All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Give us some feedback, get engaged, and episode 5 coming up soon.